So this is my About Me website that I've used to demonstrate some of the commonly used elements in HTML. To grab the source code for this, you can go to my GitHub. The address for that is github.com/DonnieSantos. And you can pull down actually my entire WebDev repository by just clicking on WebDev. And then down here there's a button called Download Zip. That'll grab you all the source code. So when you extract that, you'll see these two files, this flow picture and the aboutme.html that I use as the source for my page. So if we blow this up a little bit, you can see some familiar stuff here. We've started the HTML element, and inside we have a header and a body, just like always. I just have some headers here, h1, h2, h3, so slightly decreasing in importance and size each time. Greetings, my name is, and so on and so forth. And that's these three headers right up here at the top. And then down here we have just a paragraph, which we also demonstrated before. Just want to take note here that the header 2, header 3, and paragraph are all what we call text elements. So a text element is obviously something that contains or modifies text. In a little bit we're going to talk about block elements as well. That's going to be more in conjunction with CSS, which we use to style the page and lay out the page a little bit. Block elements don't necessarily have anything in them. They're just kind of containers for other elements. So we'll get to those. So right now we've mainly just talked about basically text elements, and also we did a link before. So here's a new non-text element. It's the image tag. And I have three attributes on this one. One is the name of the source, which is the location or the name of the file, and then I have a width and a height on here. The actual picture that I'm using, flow.jpg, is bigger than 200 by 200, but these two attributes are going to make sure that it uses the height that I've specified and the width that I've specified. So all three of these attributes are actively being used by the browser to display this picture in these dimensions. Down here we have a table. So this is new. There's only one attribute that I have on the table element, and that is a border of 1. So if we scroll down here to my table, this guy here is my table, and you can see the size of the border surrounding the grid is just a thin 1 pixel size. And now I have 3 rows inside. These TR elements are called table rows. So I have 3 TRs. These 3 are children of the table element. And then, obviously if you think about a 2D array or a 2D grid, every row consists of like columns. And these are called TD. I forget what D means, but you can think of these as the table columns. So for every row I have 2 columns. The first column is like the name of the topic, and the second column is a detailed description. So just laying out these basically dimensions of the table with a row and another row and another row, and each row having 2 columns, it produces this table. So that's pretty simple. Don't really use tables that much anymore because of some new and more sophisticated CSS techniques that we'll be getting into in the lessons to come. But sometimes you want to bust out a table and find it useful or simple for something. Alright, so now we have another paragraph here, but inside of this paragraph I've embedded a link. I've actually linked to progressive.com just to exemplify that I can kind of smash that link right in the middle of some text. So before we had the link as a direct child of the HTML element, but now I have the link kind of embedded in the middle of this text in a paragraph. So you can totally do that, it's fine. Just think of this, the value of the anchor, as just part of the text that was in the paragraph. So you can go to progressive.com and check out some of the software I wrote. And the tag surrounding progressive.com is what we call marking up that text. So obviously this is marked up too. You can go to is marked up as a paragraph, but we have an extra additional layer of markup surrounding progressive.com specifying that it's a link to progressive.com. So that's kind of a more interesting example of a link in the middle of a paragraph. And finally down here I have what we call a list. UL stands for unordered list, and I just lay out these list items as children of the UL, and what that does is it just creates this little bullet list here. So my hobby is designing video games, writing music, so on and so forth. These are all just LI and LI, so they're all list items as children of the unordered list. So these, just using these simple HTML elements, you can kind of create a page that has this kind of look and feel, nothing brilliant stylistically, but like I said, we're going to get into that with CSS. And just using these simple, very commonly used elements, you can do the vast majority of the basics of what you want to do. So just as a final note here before we move on to styles, HTML has a lot of elements, and we can never cover all of them. You can get a list of them by Googling, HTML element list, and the best one is probably W3 Schools. So here you can see there's a ton of elements in HTML, and a lot of them you'll never see in your life. Some of them you don't even want to use if you saw them. Like for example, B defines bold text. Now this is a really outmoded tag because nobody bolds text anymore by marking it up in HTML. We use CSS for that now. So some of these elements you don't even want to use. They're kind of like outdated. But you can if you are so inclined, you can peruse through this and kind of go shopping for an element that you're looking for, or try to see if there's something here to suit your needs. But even myself, I don't recognize half of these elements, so it's not important to memorize all of them. So just kind of be aware that that list is there in the specification for the language, and you can kind of use this as a guide if you want for seeing if some of those elements are commonly used. You can do a quick Google, see if anybody on Stack Overflow is using it. So that basically concludes getting started with the content layer of front-end web development. Just the basics of HTML attributes and elements, and at this point I think we're ready to move into CSS and the style layer of the front end. So the front end basically consists of the content, the styling, and the behavior. So the HTML is the content layer, the CSS is the style layer, and the JavaScript is the behavior layer. So these are the very basic building blocks of the content layer on the front end, and just being able to read through HTML code like this and being able to understand and read these elements and attributes to kind of get a feel for what's in the content of the document that the browser is interpreting is kind of the first skill necessary to get a feel for the client side and the front end. And next we'll be moving into CSS and styles and layouts, and hopefully getting a much better looking website.